Binding of Isaac is a game about a boy named Isaac hiding away in his imagination from his mother, who seeks to kill him as a result of her religious psychosis, a twisted parallel to the story of Ibrahim and Ismail in the Bible and Quran. In Isaac's imagination, we can see his perspective on his life and his mother, but most importantly, himself. Through this, we can piece together the story before the game, as well as the psychological aspects of Isaac. How does Isaac, from the Binding of Isaac, illustrate the elements of the psychodynamic mind through his life and imagination, and how are they linked to his relationship with his mother? Sigmund Freud founded the psychoanalytic theory, which outlines three central elements of the psyche: the id, ego, and superego. The primary element of Isaac's mind is the superego, which is composed of two components: the ego ideal, which sets the standards, and the conscious, which produces guilt. Isaac has an overwhelmingly strong superego as a result of his guilt and fears. This is shown through his imagination and perception of himself, and as a result of his mother's actions towards him. All of this will be explained in further detail later, but the main idea is that his conscience is much too strong for him to bear. The secondary element of Isaac's mind is the id. The id is the oldest and most primitive psychic agency, representing the biological foundations of personality. It is the reservoir of basic instinctual drives, particularly sexual drives, which motivate the organism to seek pleasure, lapsely and stay one. The id is the part of the mind that focuses on primal instinct and desire, usually being considered the evil part of the mind that causes temptation. At this point in a child's life, the id should rule the mind, as the mind has yet to develop the reasoning for ego or adopt the morals for superego. Isaac, however, does not pursue his id in his actual life, rather he fulfills it in his imagination. Because of his harsh environment, he has to escape to a world in order to fulfill his desires, a world where there may still be cruelty and judgment, but also where he can fight back. There is also the id in his will to survive against his mother, which defies his superego, which demands he atone for his sins and allow his death to pass. The tertiary element of Isaac's mind is the ego, which is the logic of the brain. Originally, Freud used the word ego to mean the sense of self, but later expanded it to include psychic functions such as judgment, tolerance, reality testing, control, planning, defense, synthesis of information, intellectual functioning, and memory. The ego is the organizing principle upon which thoughts and interpretations of the world are based. Snowden 105-107. The ego creates the balance between the id and superego, ensuring that the id is realistically fulfilled while in the boundaries of the superego's morals. However, Isaac lacks logical reason due to his young age, being only 5 years old. Additionally, his superego is so overwhelming that it guides nearly all of his decisions, as opposed to logic-based decision-making. Now that all three elements of Isaac's mind has been illustrated using Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytical perspective, it is time to more deeply analyze the control the superego has over Isaac. Isaac's superego is too strong, as his main challenge, other than his mother, is himself, as he has to face his own harsh moral criticism. But why is this the case, and how is it shown? We can attest the cause to Isaac's mother, whose constant judgment of Isaac surely affected him to have an overwhelming conscience, believing that he is always committing some sort of sin or wrongdoing against God. This is supported by Freud himself, who states, "Thus a child's superego is in fact constructed on the model not of its parents, but of its parents' superego. The contents which fill it are the same, and it becomes the vehicle of tradition." Freud 95-6. The superego, more specifically the ego ideal, is directly formed by the influence of authority figures, mainly parents and teachers. This results in Isaac having an overbearing and strict religious compass that he inherited from his mother, which causes an overwhelming sense of guilt. Isaac's mother lashes out at her son, and he fully believes that her rage towards him is justified and her statements of the utmost validity. As a result, he thinks he is corrupted by sin and must atone. The song playing right now, Living in the Light, represents his mother's extremist beliefs, with the lyrics preaching extremist topics that are almost reasonable, but clearly show that something is wrong. Lyrics contain ideas of unforgivable sin, a vengeful God, and the need to remove all that is sinful from one's life, which in this case happens to be nearly everything Isaac owns and makes. Isaac consistently and constantly portrays himself as evil or falling to the temptation of sin, with many gameplay elements and endings relating to him believing that he has become corrupted. This moral punishment against himself manifests as angelic figures and many forms of his mother as bosses, punishing him for his sinfulness. Additionally, many of the other characters, which are all essentially Isaac playing dress-up or being dead, represent Isaac's belief of inherent sin. These characters include Cain, Judas, Azazel, Eve, and Samson, which all represent some sort of corruption or sinfulness that he believes that he is. Essentially, Isaac blames himself for all the evil in his life and believes he deserves punishment. There is no evidence more direct than the many endings of the game, which are cutscenes that give pieces of the story as you progress, rather than a traditional ending. In ending 13, we see Isaac looking in the mirror and seeing a demonic version of himself, to which he looks at the floor in disgust and regret, and then looks at the chest. With later information, we know he will jump into this chest and suffocate, his form of retribution for his sins. A similar effect is in ending 16, where he is in said chest, and we see him distorting between Isaac and some demonic form. In ending 20, we see Isaac's drawings devolve from its usual happy imaginative stuff and start becoming evil, and he proclaims himself to be sinful and the devil. Finally, the final ending directly shows Isaac forgiving himself for his sins only after his death, showing that he truly believes that all the pain was his fault, and his death has now satiated his superego and cleared himself of guilt.
Then suddenly, the sky above cracked open, and a white beam of light reached down into the earth, smiting the mother of harlots asunder, and setting the blood lake to a boil. As the beast descended down into the lake of fire, Isaac ascended towards the crack in the sky, and as he flew he could see echoes of his past before him. He saw his mother mourning the loss of her son. He saw his father leaving them without turning to say goodbye. He saw his mother sleeping and his father taking money from her purse. He heard the late-night fights they had that kept him up at night, and the guilt he felt for what he believed he was causing. He felt the pain in his stomach during those sleepless nights, and saw his shadow in the closet waiting for him. As he rose, he felt his fears drop from his body. His shame, his worry, pulled from his being. As he became lighter, his ascent became faster. He saw his one true companion alive and well.
In conclusion, Isaac's mind, from the psychoanalytical perspective, is made up of an overwhelming superego formed from his mother's rage against him, an id based in his imagination that fulfills his desires, and a weak ego that lacks the judgment to form a logical path.